The Driver of Serpents, The Blessed and Possessed, Book 1, by Jay Requard. Part 1, The Saint, Chapter 1, Session 1. Since you're listening, I'll start at the beginning. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth. Kidding. Let me start again. This began in New York. I took a hit off the joint before the busboy opened the back door, the blueberry smoke filling my lungs. I blew it out like a dragon. Or at least I thought I looked like a dragon. For all I knew, the bloody fool gaped with a curiosity born less of how much smoke I exhaled than the sight of a skinny Irish priest sparking a joint in the middle of a Chinatown alley. I was still in my blacks I had worn during my final visit to Vatican City, where I had quit less than 24 hours before, and I had left my white priest collar unbuttoned, sticking out of my shirt's black collar. Fuck, I didn't care. Ex-priest. My name's Patrick. St. Patrick of Ireland, in case there was some confusion later on. Yes, that one. The Driver of Serpents, Delver of Purgatory, and your favorite disappointment's reason to get plastered every March. And that night I was about to exorcise a demon in the freezer of an old dirty Chinese restaurant. The joint still glowed as I rested in the gutter for later, my head lightened to the point where I no longer cared about the hangover I had carried all the way from JFK. Sticky from years of grease, sweat, and steam that had browned and bubbled pieces of the paint, the dingy gray door opened with a pop. The smell of boiled cabbage, soggy pepper, and God knows what else struck me as I entered an industrial kitchen, the stainless appliances stained beyond repair. Grimy walks burned over blue gas flames, unmanned by the two cooks crowding one of the kitchen's corners. They puffed on bent, shriveled cigarettes they shared from the same pack of Camels. The door to the walk-in freezer lay shut, crates of unwashed radishes stacked before it. I thumbed at the hunk of steel. "There, lads." One of the cooks nodded, liver-spotted hands shaking while he drew another lungful of cancer. The busboy unstacked the crates before the freezer door while I removed my tools from the black pea coat I had worn over my holy monkey suit. Same shit every time. The good book, my crucifix, my rosary, and what remained of my vestment, a long scarf of green cloth embroidered in gold knotwork, formed to match the silver cross attached to the rosary. Real Irish folk hate it when it's called a Celtic cross, as if the bloody sheep fuckers in Scotland didn't have druids and shit too, or bless their hearts, problems with those damn limey fucks like everyone does. Let me tell you about ancient Ireland and its neighbors. There were druids everywhere. Tree-hugging, human-sacrificing, wild-ass magic druids. Then they became Catholics. That's when the real trouble started. I let the thought go when I threw on my vestment, kissing the ends before crossing myself. Any of you got a bottle of water I can use? One of the cooks, the younger of the pair, puttered to the front of the restaurant and returned with a bottle of Deer Park, its paper label half torn from rough handling. Condensation on the plastic wet my hand, a sensation I did not like when stoned to the gills. "Ah, fuck," I muttered, blessing the water quickly before nodding to the busboy. "Cracker." The busboy hesitated, checking with the older cook. The man nodded, his Fu Manchu wet at the ends. The freezer opened. A putrid smell wafted out, dried by the frost. I walked in, not hesitating for a second. Demons are all show and tell, very little substance. I could get into the fact that not a single one of these dark bastards would actually dig their claws into anybody without God's express permission, but that's a book within itself. Multiple books. He sat in a folding chair, the kind one saw at wrestling shows, dead center in the small 10 by 15-foot rectangle. Wrinkled chickens hung from hooks beside slathered beef ribs, and trays piled with frozen dumplings, fresh from the packaging discarded in the room's corners. Barefoot, he leaned like a drunkard, the front of his wife-beater stained in blood and grease. The demon had bitten open his bottom lip. "You speak English?" I asked as the door closed behind us. The lock clacked shut on the outside. The fluorescent lights revealed enough when he looked up at me. His eyes were blacked out. My rosary wrapped around my left hand. I twirled the black wooden crucifix in the fingers of my right. I placed it on his knee. "O Father, who art in heaven." "He's not." "Oh ho ho!" Speaking on the first go. I stepped back and smiled. Those black eyes stared ahead at the corner of the freezer. "Come on now. Don't get nervous on the account of little old me." The demon said nothing. I touched his shoulder with the cross. "Here in the name of God, tormentor, for the one who made this vessel and its waters has come, In the name of Michael of the archangels, protector of heaven, earth, and the towers, I beseech thee to speak your name and depart back to perdition." The possessed cook's face twitched. He coughed. Demons lie. That's the first rule, but the tricks were always the same. Keep quiet until the deed is done for whatever the devil has sent them for. Yet none never counted on a demon's pride. Must have been a hard fall from heaven to stay that angry about it. "Out, vile thing, for the light of the Lord has come with the voice of Mary in our ears." I kept the cross on his shoulder. "Come, fallen child, lose yourself of this flesh, and travel back to your burning place until the slag is gone. Until the day you are judged, leave and be gone forever." The demon raised his head and looked right at me. "We met in Italy, you know." I belted him across the face, beads of my rosary biting into my knuckles. Knocked to the floor, the demon kicked away, a blackened hand out to stop me. "Please, St. Patrick, please! Is that fucking you, Barrett?" I almost dropped my Bible. "I told you to stop fucking around with souls back in Rome." He cocked a black eye at me, a small smile on his bloody lips. "You still came." I unscrewed the cap to my holy water and blessed that son of a bitch right then and there. No steam, no boiled flesh, but I got what I wanted. The little cook's body writhed and bucked, arms and legs bent at odd angles while the demon convulsed. Barrett shrieked like dying children. I squatted at his trembling feet, letting my green and silver rosary dangle from my hand. "Let's cut the shit, boyo." I got his attention, our eyes locked again. "You remember what you said to me last time I forced you out of someone?" "The new word is still without a body," the demon mumbled, fighting the words. "And the word resides in her." No. You said come to New York and I would save more souls. You horned fucks don't talk about saving souls, but I came to New York. Your turn. What's next?" Barrett scooted to the freezer's wall and leaned against it, face first like an Egyptian praying on the day the frogs fell. Heaving to steady his racked, wet body, he twisted at the waist to face me, crunching the cook's spine. "Cut that out," I said. "I'm getting to it." Vertebrae popped when he aligned his torso to his lower half and rested against the scummed iron. "Do you have a cigarette?" "I don't do tobacco." "Well, fuck." Barrett searched the red floor in vain. "Care to share the rest of that weed in your boot?" The cover of my Bible ripped open, my fingers digging through until I found the right passage. "You ever hear about the one of Christ in the wilderness?" "Peace, potato eater." The demon held up his hand. The veins beneath the cook's skin had darkened. The possession asserted fully over the host's soul. Who knew how long Barrett had kept his claws in this one? I fought him well over a bloody year back in Rome before he started spouting his new word nonsense from a little girl's mouth, till it stopped sounding like nonsense. He may have had this poor sod for years. "Talk, demon." I sipped from my bottle of holy water, easing the parch in my throat. "Be quick." "She's here," he said. "She's here in New York." "Who?" "And the word resides in her," he quoted again. We stared at each other for a long time, neither saying anything. The cross in my left hand, Bible in my right. The answer to my dilemma came swift. "Barrett, I beseech you, just ask me to leave." The request startled me. Demons fought, screamed, shouted, but they never gave up until someone broke them like God had. "Why?" "Why what?" he asked. "Just send me home. In the name of Christ and his angels, go back to perdition, Barrett, and wait for the day of judgment." The darkness in the cook's eyes subsided, and for a moment the man tilted his face skyward, as if beyond the moldy green ceiling there lay the sun shining bright upon him for the first time. She was there, I knew, as she always was. Our mother saving the lambs as her son, the shepherd, had saved us from our sins. The cook spoke in his language, which I think was Mandarin. I don't know what he said, but I picked out the name Mary well enough. I blessed him, provided him the body and blood, and had the entire staff recite the Lord's Prayer and way too many Hail Marys to make sure before I got the fuck out of there. Outside, the city lights glittered, well past midnight but bustling in the streets outside the alleys. Like Rome, the city never slept, and, like Rome, what went on was no more or no less holy. People marched to work, dumb and blind to the great war within and around them. I found the leftover in my joint on the curb, and with enough scratch to create a decent little ember. The blueberry hit smooth as I removed my vestment and repacked my gear and my coat. My phone buzzed. The chair had called 15 times in the last hour. Letting the grass take away the exhaustion in my neck, back, and hands, I let the city's lights bathe me in neon and fluorescence, one lost saint in the places between. And the word resides with her. Whatever the fuck that meant.